Alright my friends, welcome back to Frogboy X1 Gaming. I'm Andrew, and today I wanted to talk about the lies and stuff that the Nvidia guys say versus what the AMD guys say, you know, towards Nvidia. Now that I've had the opportunity to try both cards, high-end, you know, you've got the I've got the Nvidia 4080 Super as well as the 7900 XT from AMD, and over the course of the last, I would say about 9 months is when I actually got into PC gaming and started taking it a lot more seriously. Started actually playing games on the PC a lot more, utilizing both brands. So I know there's a lot of rumors and misinformation out there from both sides, and I want to kind of touch on some of that today. And this was actually requested by somebody in the community, so I'm just going to kind of go top off my head. Maybe I'll do a part 2 to this video if the views are really good on it and a lot of people like it. Then we can dig deeper into this, because I think there is a real discussion to be had when it comes to both of these competing brands that are essentially competing for your money on, you know, a lot of the same. You know, a lot of the same features are there, but then there's also other features that really set both of these brands apart. So the first one I would like to address is the AMD bad drivers. Now, I've been using pretty much AMD exclusively almost that whole time. I've had the 4070 Super, and now I have a 4080 Super. I'm actually using the 4080 Super right now. I want to really touch on this. So the AMD drivers. Now, AMD puts out drivers pretty regularly. I think AMD probably puts out driver updates a little bit more frequently than Nvidia, at least in my experience. There's a new driver out right now. Both of them usually do the game ready drivers pretty often, but when it comes to AMD, you get the Adrenaline software, which encompasses pretty much everything. You can do all of your tuning right from there. You can get right into Ryzen Master for tuning your CPU, doing all of that stuff. You can do overclocking, undervolting, everything right there from the Adrenaline software, as well as be able to record and, you know, like live stream pretty much everything you could possibly want from a GPU driver is there. When it comes to being able to set up like game stuff, utilize, you know, driver features like AMD's fluid motion frames, which is a driver level feature that you can use for everything. I've had very minimal issues with the overall AMD drivers. Like I don't think I've ran into anything that would make me be like, oh my gosh, dude, that sucks. Not one time. And I can literally say the same for Nvidia too. Like both of them seem to have really good drivers as of, you know, at least within the last 9 months. So I get that there's stuff from before that maybe, you know, like a few generations ago, maybe an AMD card came out, maybe their drivers weren't good or anything like that. But as of now, and as of the time that I've spent on the AMD GPUs, I find that to be false and misleading in today's GPU market. So now we're going to touch on something that the AMD guys would say towards Nvidia, and that is that ray tracing doesn't matter. Now, this one here, I've kind of went back and forth with this a lot since, you know, my 3060 Ti days. I have been through a 3060 Ti, well, if you count the laptop, 3050 Ti laptop, 3060 Ti GPU in a desktop, a 3080 10 gigabyte GPU, then the 4070 Super, and now a 4080 Super. Now, there's levels to this. Well, there's levels of GPUs. Thanks, Doc, for the saying. Shout out to my buddy Doc Dark. He's now in the PC world up here in the clouds with the rest of us. Let's talk about this, because you kind of have to look at this from a certain point of view. Now, if you're on a 30 series card, obviously, you know, your ray tracing performance is going to vary. So is like the 20 series, and you know, up to the 40 series. It wasn't until I actually got the 4070 Super that I was finding, you know, being able to ray trace in certain like older types of games, you know, and also the newer games, that it was possible, but only with the utilization of frame generation. And you know, guys, in my opinion, like Nvidia and AMD both have the frame generation, and I find these technologies to actually be fairly decent. It actually does provide like a smoothness of the overall screen, which if you're using a controller, it definitely makes it more utilizable, to where you can actually, well, utilizable, more utilize, like you can utilize it a lot better and kind of feel, you know, I mean, okay, I mean, if you're really looking for like a high frame rate ray tracing experience, I wasn't able to get that till I bought the 4080 Super. Now with the 4080 Super, ray tracing at 1440p is absolutely phenomenal. I get pretty dang good frame rates just out of the box, and then if I enable like DLSS and then I kick on frame generation, that makes a difference. Now ray tracing is, but there's also another point to this whole ray tracing thing, is that the majority of the games that actually utilize ray tracing in some form or another, 98% of the time, you can't notice it. I'm not gonna say you can't notice it, like you don't notice it unless you're looking for it, because it does blend pretty well. And once you get used to the ray tracing, it's almost like it's like other features that, like, once you're playing a game for a while, you just get used to the way things look. Like when you first get into a game, you're like absolutely blown away, but then by the time you finish that game, or you've been playing it for a long time, those same things just don't wow you as much as they used to. And I find ray tracing to be like that, so I can understand why a lot of the AMD guys would be saying that, hey man, ray tracing doesn't matter. But then there are some select titles, like for me the ones that sold me on ray tracing are Control from Remedy, the amazing Hitman 2, like Hitman, the Hitman series, dude, those are amazing. I absolutely love the ray tracing in there. They got some really nice sun shadows, and then the reflections, they really just bring out that overall experience and make it look and feel so much freaking better. And I was actually able to utilize that with the 4070 Super, which was pretty much that turning point for me. Now I was already able to get ray tracing with the AMD GPUs on Control, and to date that was like one of the games that I was like, yeah, this absolutely looks awesome. But here's the thing, there's other games like Cyberpunk. Now a lot of people talk about the path tracing like it's like, whoa, this is so cool. To me, for some reason, Cyberpunk ray tracing is more demanding than I would like it to be, and it is pretty decent on the 4080 Super, but at the same time, if you turn that off, and for me, turning it off in some ways actually looks a little bit better. And I've said this multiple times, and you can be mad at me all you want, but I don't necessarily think that the ray tracing performance that you get, or the ray tracing, the path tracing, the ray tracing's fine. You can actually utilize that. You can utilize that on pretty much both GPU manufacturers, at least to a playable experience. But when it comes to the path tracing in that game, it's just not wowing me like it seems to be, you know, wowing a lot of people. And I kind of feel like it, to some degree, that, you know, maybe some people are just like over exaggerating on how great it makes the game look. It does look good in the right situations, in the right lighting, in the right like time of day or time of night. Then the path tracing does look pretty good, but it's not a consistent look that looks good all the time. And that goes back to that thing where once you've seen it and you've seen it and you've seen it, you just kind of don't notice it as much anymore. And that's Cyberpunk for me. Cyberpunk for me is one of those games that I just don't notice it as much, because you know, the overall reflection quality, because that's mainly the thing you're going to see the most when it comes to ray tracing, is like the reflections. And then if you see sun shadows without sun shadows, those are two of the more prominent ones that I think I see, is the shadows and the overall and the overall reflections most of the time when you're playing a game. Those are the two things that stand out to me the most. I mean, like, you've got global illumination, and then some other forms like gosh, what was it, ambient occlusion and stuff, that like, obviously those are more kind of off to the side type features that, like, yeah, you'll notice them, but you won't notice them as much as you would like the shadows or the rate or the reflections. Well, in Cyberpunk, I've never really thought the reflections looked super good. I mean, there's spots in there where they're just blurry and ugly no matter what GPU you're on, and then there's some that look really sharp and really crisp and really clean, especially with the new ray reconstruction techniques. That actually does sharpen those up and make them look better. But like I said, guys, some of them just don't stand out as much as they would. So I can understand the whole, you know, ray tracing doesn't matter, and to an extent, I kind of agree. I kind of agree that you would be much better off just utilizing you know, full rasterized power to really crank up the other features and the other visual effects on a lot of these games. And right now, why ray tracing is still kind of, you know, a little bit too heavy to use, unless you're, you know, getting like higher end GPUs and you're spending a lot more money for those. I still think that that rasterization really matters, and if you want the most bang for your buck, I definitely recommend, you know, like an AMD GPU for that, because I feel like the feature set that you get with AMD when it comes to like AMD's fluid motion frames and other things like that, like driver level features, I think those are more important to a lot of gamers than ray tracing is right now. Ray tracing, in my opinion, and this is just me, like, I like it, but at the same time, if it's not like if it doesn't like wow me visually, I don't usually use it. But I have been utilizing it more with the 4080 Super, and I will, you know, kind of update my feelings and update how I look at it as time goes on, as I continue to utilize this 4080 Super, because I have found the experience to be much more palatable with this level of GPU. So another thing that I would like to address is, you know, the AMD thing with people, you know, what was the thing that I'm trying to remember what other people say. Like, I had it in my mind a minute ago, but I wasn't really thinking about it. The what was it? Oh, this is a good one too. I've actually seen, while in Reddit and other places, that AMD pays people to hype up their GPUs because they only need to get you to buy it one time just so they can make money. And I find that freaking hilarious. I find that hilarious. That is like one of those things where I'm like, this is hilarious. So technically, according to them, AMD goes out and pays people to to pretend to like AMD GPUs so that they can sell them to other people and get them to buy them just once. That's all they need to do. Is that's their whole job, is to just go out there and try to get people to buy an AMD GPU, because they only got to sell them just once, and if they can keep doing that over and over and over again, then they can be profitable enough to where they don't matter. I think that is probably the funniest thing I've ever heard, and it's such misinformation that I'm like, are you guys serious? No, I personally bought AMD because I was irritated and furious with Nvidia, with the 3080 and then the cost of the 4080. And just what they did there. They almost, I mean, they were charging almost double what they did for the 3080, while also, you know, leaving my 3080 10 gig gimped with 10 gigs of VRAM, and not very future-proof. And so, yeah, I was mad. So I was like, all right, well, AMD is going to give me 20 gigs of VRAM for about the same price I paid. So yeah, I'm going to give them a try. I went to AMD. Nobody tried to convince me. Actually, everybody I talked to told me not to go to AMD because I wouldn't like it because because Nvidia was better. Well, once I got the AMD GPU, I was absolutely blown away. Obviously, I'm going from gen to gen, so I'm getting an uptick in performance. You know, I'm getting, you know, pretty much 3090 power for less money than a 3090 and still being able to like fully enjoy the video games. Now, I'm going to be completely honest that like each generation, you know, if you're going from gen to gen, your uptake or your how much performance you're getting over what you were on the last one isn't going to be as big as you would as it probably would if you waited a couple generations, but it's still an uptick. And it's still, if you have the money and you can do it, then you should do it. But I do find that to be pretty false. I don't think AMD is out there trying to pay people to make content for them. If anything, I would feel more like maybe Nvidia does that, or maybe maybe Nvidia doesn't pay people to write out say anything, but they do seed the bed a lot, you know, with you know how generous they are with giving out their GPUs and stuff like that, and I'm pretty sure there's, you know, and I'm pretty sure there's like, you know, I don't know, I'm not gonna say it, you know, like a scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I've generally come to the realization that yes, people do absolutely like Nvidia just because, you know, the Nvidia, you know, the features and everything, because I do. If I do, then I'm pretty sure everybody else does. So I don't necessarily think that Nvidia would have to pay people, but I'm pretty sure that there's also people out there, you know, that would just like, yeah, man, Nvidia, and just spread negative information about AMD just because. Like I do kind of feel like that. But all right, another thing that the AMD guys say about Nvidia is that Nvidia purposely gimps their cards. Now, I personally have been on the receiving end of this and felt that way. I did. I felt that way with a 3080 10 gig, and I also felt that way with a 3060 Ti. And now, if you go back and you look at this, if you look at this realistically, because yes, obviously Nvidia really does, you know, have I mean, they're both guilty of giving you less VRAM. But if you look at this at the beginning of the 30 series generation and the AMD, you know, 6000 series generation, you had AMD, which is the supplier for both major console manufacturers. Both of those systems, the PlayStation 5 and the Series X, did come with 16 gigs of RAM, onboard memory. So to Nvidia's defense, they didn't really have insider knowledge for that. I mean, obviously they could have done more to prepare and make the 30 series cards, you know, more prepared for like future games. And it's, you would think like the $1 trillion company with the AI capabilities would know that, like, yeah, this is a good idea, but at the end of the day, they didn't do that, and that left a lot of people with especially, I think most of it really does come down because they were pretty reasonably priced to MSRP, like $699 for a 3080 10 gigs. So to me, that's kind of water under the bridge, if you really ask me. But it does suck that they basically doubled the price and gave you a lot more VRAM with the 4000 series, with the 40 series cards. So that there kind of makes you feel like, yeah, dude, they bait and switched me or something, because you know, like the 40 series got new features, they got double the price, all of that. But after actually spending time with the 4080 Super, the 4070 Super, and the 4070, I can tell you that like frame gen technologies and DLSS and all of these features are definitely going to provide more longevity than you would have gotten out of the 30 series cards for sure. You're definitely going to see, you're definitely going to be able to stretch these cards a lot further than you would have without those technologies. Now, it does suck that they weren't extended back to the 30 series cards, because we both know that AMD's FSR3 does in fact provide the opportunity for 30 series card owners to be able to utilize frame generation technology while using FSR. So another thing that the Nvidia guys say about AMD is that FSR sucks. Now, I've played games where FSR looks absolutely phenomenal. And then I play games that it looks like crap. But I've also played games on Nvidia where DLSS looks phenomenal and DLSS is broken and it like does weird things and ghosting and other things. I don't think either one of them are perfect, and I don't think either one of them are trash. I've seen both of these technologies perform and provide good, stable, clean image quality. But I've also seen both of them provide bad, fuzzy, blurry textures and like pixel crawl and all kinds of stuff. I've seen I play a lot of different games. Like I have a massive collection of games that that utilize these technologies. So I've seen a pretty wide gamut of games that both employ FSR as well as DLSS, and I've seen both of them look really good. I've seen them at their best, and then I've seen them at their worst. I've seen them both fall short on doing what they need to do. So when you hear that, you know, the Nvidia guys always saying that like, hey man, FSR sucks and DLSS is better, I beg to differ, man. I've definitely played my share of stinkers on DLSS, and I've definitely played my share of stinkers with FSR. But when both of these technologies are 100% utilized and doing the best they can do, the experience is incredible, and the overall image quality that they both deliver is very, very good. In my opinion, and with my experience in the PC space now and being able to utilize both GPUs as an actual freaking user, like as a gamer that buys them and utilizes them and plays them and experiences, you know, games, not just running like benchmarks and looking at this and looking at that. Like I actually have put in some time and utilized these features on these cards. So I can tell you from experience and from somebody that actually enjoys playing video games more than they do benchmarking, that yeah, these technologies are the real deal, and they're not always perfect, but they're good enough in some instances to where you're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. You know, I mean, if I was playing it without it, it wouldn't run that well, you know, and then playing it with it. But we also need to look at the fact that we shouldn't have to, at these prices for GPUs, we shouldn't have to rely on these technologies to be able to power us through. And that's where the high-end GPUs come in. Like the 7900 XT, I don't have to use AMD's FSR on the 4080 Super. I don't have to use DLSS. When I'm playing at 1440p, I don't need those technologies at either on either of these cards. They both run over 60 frames a second, 100% on these games at 1440p. Well, I'm not going to say 100%. There are a few games that have needed, you know, some kind of upscaling. I think, gosh, which ones? No, I'll have to look at it. I think both of these cards run 100% over 1440p. Yeah, both of these cards are over 100%. At 1440p, at least in the games that I've played. So you shouldn't really need upscaling until you get to 4K, and I kind of feel like that's what the upscaling was built for, because if you try to utilize FSR or DLSS or XESS on anything under, you know, 4K, the image quality, that's when you kind of see like things break up a lot. But when you're utilizing these at 4K, it's not bad. I mean, the biggest thing with FSR is you do get some instability in like some, you know, like textures and stuff. And to me, sometimes that bugs me, sometimes it doesn't. It just kind of depends on the game. If it's a game that I want to look absolutely incredible, that's when it bugs me. I think FSR gets its bad name, honestly, my friends, from the console implementation. Because on PC, I don't think it's that bad. And when I'm running FSR on my AMD cards, it seems to be better optimized, at least in my opinion, than it does when I'm running it on any of the Nvidia cards I've ever run it on. I haven't tried to run it on the 4080 Super yet, but I have run it on the 4070. I don't think I tried to run it on the 4070 Super either. But I have utilized it on like the 3080 and all of that stuff, and I tend to feel like it looks better and it performs better on the AMD architecture as opposed to like the Nvidia architecture. So I know that there's a lot more different types of things when it comes to, you know, the lies and the misinformation that both of the fan bases spread towards the others. But if you really look at it, and this is kind of the way you have to look at it, and this is the way I look at it now. With AMD, if you buy an AMD product, you are buying that for longevity, you're buying that for necessity because you want to be able to keep gaming at a certain level a lot longer, and you just don't want to have to keep rebuying things over and over again. And that there is, you know, obviously, you know, you get a healthy amount of VRAM with the AMD cards, you get a low enough price to where it actually makes sense to buy those, you get pretty dang good features and some cutting edge features, you know, like AMD's fluid motion frames. You get amazing Adrenaline software that works really well. There's not a whole lot of problems with it. Sometimes when an iteration comes out, it might, you know, not function, you know, 100% with everything, but then they patch it and bring it up to date, and then it starts running better. I utilized the AMD's fluid motion frames when it started in beta, and I watched that grow to become an amazing feature. So when I look at AMD side of things, that is for people that want to maximize the longevity of their card, and that could be said for high-end Nvidia cards as well. So if you're wanting to save money and get a good bang for your buck, I think AMD is where you're at. But you have to look at Nvidia on the other side as a, to me, I look at it as a stopgap. At least, you know, like the mid-range and under type cards, the ones that are still coming with like 12 gigs of VRAM, the ones that are coming with less VRAM, the ones that, you know, that are more of a, you know, they're expendable. They're like, okay, yeah, you're gonna play with this for a couple of years, and then you're gonna start to, and then you're gonna want to upgrade. And as long as you're okay with that, and you actually have the money and you're not putting yourself in like financial ruin or any kind of thing like that, and you can afford to do that and move forward and buy those, then by all means, buy them. Don't let anybody talk you out of that. If that's what you want, then buy those. But I do have to caution against buying lower end Nvidia GPUs for features like ray tracing or anything like that, because I feel like those cards offer a compromised experience that you might feel a little bit like, whoa, dude, I'm getting cheated on that. But then again, you know, when you engage frame generation and some of these other technologies, it can make it playable. So that's fine too. But just be aware that it wasn't until like the 4080 Super level that I actually felt like, okay, these settings and these features actually make sense now. They definitely feel a lot more usable, and I'm a lot happier with the way they perform now. So take that with a grain of salt. Take that however you're gonna take that, and if it's something that you really, you know, want those new features, I mean, I want to say, you know, just maybe control your hype for them, especially depending on the level of GPU you're going to go into with Nvidia. You kind of need to manage your expectations to a point where if you expect like all this stuff because there's a lot of hype for it, and you get in there and like you can barely use it, that can leave like a bad taste in your mouth. So just be prepared to, you know, manage your expectations on certain levels of GPUs from Nvidia, and I think you'll be fine. And be prepared, you know, to want to be able to upgrade every generation. The great thing about that is Nvidia cards, you usually can get a pretty good amount of money back on those. They're usually really easy to get rid of, as long as you're realistic with what you're trying to get. If you can get at least half your money back on the Nvidia GPUs to put it towards your next one, that's awesome. That's going to save you money. That's going to help you be able to continue upgrading and buying new GPUs every generation. Like you can just upgrade every generation and essentially rent that GPU until the next one comes out. So and with AMD, usually, like I said, those are built those are built, you know, solid enough to where you can buy one, keep it for a couple of generations. By the time that the second generation is ending and you're starting to feel like maybe you need to upgrade, you'll still feel pretty good about the overall performance and what you're getting out of there. You know, being able to make it so easy for you to overclock and undervolt and all of that stuff with the Adrenaline software just makes that such an amazing experience. So, all right, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.